Namaskaram. Hari Om, everyone. Good morning.
Hari Om. Namaskaram, everyone. A very warm welcome to everybody who took out time on Sunday morning to join us for this session. We are in the process of exploring various spiritual healing modalities. And today I have a very interesting topic and, of course, a very acclaimed guest on this show. Vinay Ji is an established philosopher, thinker, and self-management expert. His translation of complex Vedic principles into practical tools of living is backed by 25 years of in-depth study and research on Vedas and Upanishads. Founder of Wisdom Foundation, he has inspired thousands of people to transform their lives using the wisdom of Vedas. So today the topic of the conversation is Vedic wisdom for purposeful life. So welcome, Vinay Ji.
Thank you, Malika. Thanks for having me here. It's wonderful spending this Sunday morning with you and with a host of others.
Pleasure. So we will begin today with a simple question. Vinay Ji, how did you happen to come into this sphere of work? Could you please talk to us about some of your work and your journey? May I request you to unmute yourself, please? Yes.
Yeah, sorry. Can you hear me now, loud and clear? Okay. So I don't think all of you heard me. Thank you, Malika, for having me at the show, and lovely to spend a little time with you and the host of others. Glad you all can join. To begin with, I would love to share my little journey, I should say. It all started when I was 16, when I was least prepared for anything like this. My father, who picked me up and took me to a spiritual discourse on Bhagavad Gita, for the reason he said that I would be very interested in the language because the speaker was a great orator. And from a very young age, I had a passion for English. So when I went there to that lecture, more than the language, it was the contents that blew me away. I was completely floored. It was a lecture on the Gita. It really mesmerized me. I was completely swept away. And that very evening, I decided that I would get into this Vedantic journey. I would want to learn this Vedic wisdom. And I got into it. And it's been 3 decades now. I have never looked back. And if you ask me, that's one of the wisest decisions I had taken in my life. And the journey has been absolutely phenomenal, unbelievable inward journey. It's truly transformational, you know. So no sooner after I had this little learning, I took to lecturing, I took to sharing these ideas at the age of 19. And I must say this, and I must confess, I find myself the youngest as a teacher or as a guru in all classrooms right throughout my life. So even today, when I do take classes, in fact, you will notice that at the extreme right, extreme left of your screen, we have Krishnamurti Garu. We lovingly call him Tata. He's 91. So I have students in my Gita classes from the age of 10 to 90. So that's the range of people that come to my classes. Nothing is mine in this. It is that great wisdom of Vedanta, which is always looked on. So when you compare the age of wisdom vis-a-vis the age of experience, the age of wisdom scores. And wisdom doesn't have any physical age. And even if you look back into history, it has always been that men of knowledge were always sought by men of power. It was never that men of knowledge went to men of power. The men of power always went to men of knowledge or men of wisdom. So it is this wisdom that is, I would say, is the need of the hour. So my journey happened all of an accident, so I was not prepared for it, but it's a pleasant accident, I must say that.
Wonderful. And I see that you have been initiated at a very young age and you have followed your heart and passion. So please talk to us about why Vedanta or the wisdom of the Upanishads is so important for us and why now?
Okay. Briefly, I would want to give a little insight as to what is this Vedanta all about. See, the word Vedanta, which gives us the Vedic wisdom, the word Vedanta is derived from two words. Veda means knowledge, and Anta means it is the highest. It is the very end of knowledge known to mankind. So here is a knowledge which deals with our lives and living. It has got direct relationship to our life today. So this knowledge of Vedanta is also known as Sanatana Dharma, which literally means principles which are eternal. They don't die away with time. They're applicable to every person, every situation, in whatever context you're in. It is very relevant to your life. So these are eternal principles. In fact, to understand it, you could very easily say science is organized knowledge. Vis-a-vis, wisdom is organized life. So science, in fact, deals with the knowledge which conveys all the laws which governs the world. The various external laws, the laws like the physical laws, they are the chemical laws, the biological laws, the geographical laws, the physiological laws, etc. So all these laws put together, you could call it the branch of knowledge called science. Vis-a-vis the Vedic wisdom, Vedanta talks about the laws which govern an individual. So these are the internal laws. Now, what are these internal laws? Perhaps the laws which govern a human birth. Why is somebody born into opulence? Why is somebody born into poverty? Why is somebody born healthy? Why is somebody born diseased? Why does one die in an accident? What is the reason why one dies in whatever way he dies? So there's a laws which govern the birth and death, the laws of attachment, the laws of deserving vis-a-vis desiring. There are the laws of physiological laws, the intellectual laws, the spiritual laws. So all these internal laws put together, that branch of knowledge is called Vedanta. So science deals with external laws which govern the world. Vedanta deals with internal laws which govern an individual, a human being.
That's beautifully explained. So what is the origin of Vedanta? And
the origin of Vedanta is actually from the very Vedas themselves, the very Veda Anta. So Vedanta is giving us the very quintessence of what Vedas have to give, which are nothing but the Upanishadic declarations. They are the truths, the highest truths known to mankind. But it is something, in short, you can call Vedanta as nothing but an instruction manual to life and living. Nothing other than that. It is just a manual to life and live. And life cannot go on without a manual. Like when you buy any gadget, can you operate the gadget without a manual? It's rather difficult. So also life cannot go on without a manual. So what it all tantamounts to is living is nothing but a skilled work, which is what the Vedas are saying. Living is like a know-how. it is an art. It is a technology. It's a technique. Just like singing is an art, playing music or an instrument like piano or a guitar, or to play a particular sport, or to even drive your car safely, it's an art. Now, I would say the biggest mistake humanity has made is that they have not understood, they have not realized that living also is an art. And that's perhaps the biggest mistake of mankind. They have, because they don't realize that it's an art, they have lost the game of life. And we are paying a very hefty price because we have not realized that. And you cannot perfect life without knowing how to learn and live it, isn't it? Like I may have a particular skill. I could be a very talented musician or a singer, but ultimately I still need to learn it and practice it and perfect it. So also is life.
Correct. The world's most complex and highly sophisticated machine has been given to us. We are born with it, and we never ever make an effort to understand or read the manual, or at least understand what is that we're born with and how to use it. And I agree with you that in this, and then the complexity of it, we do lose track, and there is so much unhappiness, anxiety, and stress around. It's probably because of what you're saying, that we do not understand what you're dealing with, and we do not have a goal or a purpose. Hence, we are actually going in circles and unhappy. So, could you please talk to us about why you think Vedas have all the answers for a happy and purposeful life?
Absolutely. I'm glad you're thinking along with me, and I hope everyone else is thinking along with me. See, when I say that living is an art, what do I mean when I say it's an art? In fact, I have 3 principles I'd like to briefly present. The 3 principles primarily, when I say an art, we are talking about art here is one's relationship with the world. It's how you relate with things, situations, and people around you. And one of the first principles we need to keep in mind, that it is not the external world of situations, things, and people that disturbs you. As you say, happiness. If you find yourself disturbed, we believe it is the external world that has caused havoc in my life. The first principle we need to understand, it is not the world, it is rather your wrong relationship with the world. It's not what you relate to, but rather how you go about relating whatever you relate to. It's not what you relate. And I got this a beautiful advice, in fact, 20 years ago, on the day of my marriage. I got an advice from a very wise person. And he said this: it doesn't matter whom you marry, Vinay. It's up to you how you relate to the person, whomever you marry. And I must say, to the truthest extent, I'm trying to apply that principle. It's not who the person is, it's how I relate to the person. So the first principle we got to understand is it's not the world, it's how you go about relating to whatever situation has presented. Now, secondly, if you have to relate with the situations, the second principle is you must understand what you're dealing with. The principle of assessment. You should be able to assess situations and people and circumstances exactly as what they are. You must understand my mother-in-law is not my mother. My daughter-in-law is not my daughter. I got to fundamentally differentiate that. You got to have this. You can't expect the world to fit into your desires. You can't expect the world to cater to you, can you? You can complain and complain and complain, but the world is going to be what it is, isn't it? And if you look at life, most of the problems arise because of your loved ones. You choose a partner, and thereafter you don't know how to deal with a partner. So this is what I mean, the art of right contact. It's not whom you choose, but how you deal with the person you deal with, how you relate to that person. That's very important. And thirdly, the third principle is whenever the world is challenging, the world presents itself difficult to you, you should not complain. In fact, when you find a tough opposition, doesn't it bring the best out of a sportsman? Doesn't business flourish when you have a stiff competition? Now, other day, I've had an experience of something which I had when I was a child. Of functional. Now, he has a sharp stone fitted onto the bicycle, and he parks the bicycle and he pedals it. And in a matter of few minutes, he sharpens and gives you a simple application, but gives you wonderful results. Now, what is the objective there is he has a rough stone there. And you need a rough stone to sharpen a knife. Similarly, you need a rough world to sharpen your personality, but you need to know that art of right contact. Now, if you do not know the art of right contact, you're in trouble. So these are the three principles, Mallika.
Wonderful. So if I understand you right, everything is boiling down to knowing who we are and how we relate to the world, and understanding the bigger picture. It is just not about people or circumstance, how you fit into the bigger picture of cosmos. Is it right?
Absolutely.
Wonderful. And I agree with you. There are so many challenges that people are going through. And it's a good phase in a way where people are vocal about it and they're talking about these problems and challenges openly and not taking it as problems are part of life. So it's a good thing that we want to look for solutions. For that, we need to ask the right questions. And yes, there are challenges in relationships. There are a lot of aspirations career-wise, financially, want to be doing a lot of things, accumulating a lot of wealth. So how do we begin applying these principles of Vedanta to life? Where do we start?
Perfect. It got me right to what I wanted to say, which is how do you bring in these eternal principles as tools, as practical tools for applied philosophy? No use of all the knowledge if you can't apply it. So given the complexities of life and its challenges, I would like each one of you to look at life and understand what is the primary purpose of life, of every human. You will realize that every human being has two primary motivations. Everybody wants to go about acquiring the world, and having acquired, they want to enjoy. So the two primary motivations is acquisition and enjoyment. So if you say acquisition and enjoyment, these two have a clear implication. The acquisition talks about the material aspect of your personality, and then happiness or enjoyment talks about a spiritual aspect of your personality. So every human being, whether you agree with it or not, whether you know it or not, have two aspects, two elements, the spiritual aspect and the material aspect, the outer facet and the inner facet. And what you look at life today, you can make a fair judgment that people are rich outside, externally, but they're poor internally. They're not rich within. So it is this imbalance of their personalities within. So there is a lopsided personality in every human being. And it is this imbalance in an individual is going about creating havoc within, and it creates havoc in the society at large. And nobody seems to realize this. Not that you should not advance materially, you should advance materially, but you should also advance spiritually. A very well-renowned philosopher was asked this question: what is your concept of richness? Who is a rich man? And that wise man said, a rich man is one whose desires are well within his assets. His desires are well within his income. You're a rich man. But the moment your desires swell and go beyond your income, you're a poor person. Well, advance materially. At the same time, you must know, you must be able to contain your demands and desires well within your resources. And that management is lacking all over. And that is evident. You find people are either successful or peaceful. You will not find people peaceful and successful at the same time. So one bracket of people are successful and not peaceful. Another bracket of people are peaceful at the cost of success. But very rare you come across a human who is successful and at the same time he's peaceful. This is what is technology, isn't it, Mallika?
Very true. And at School of Personal Excellence, we believe in having it all. There's no more, you can have this, but you can't have that. It's like having your cake and eating it too.
Yep.
Please help us understand, how can you have it all?
Wonderful. How you can have it all is by understanding a human being a little closer. So when you look at a human, there are 3 states of a human personality, or rather you can say 3 states of a mind. Now these are technical terms that they are known as gunas. I'm sure most of them are familiar. Gunas are nothing but mental temperaments of a human being. So every human has got 3 mental temperaments. One is tamas. Tamas is an inactive state. Rajas is a state of hyperactive. Sattva is a state of being transactive. So all boils down to which state you belong to, whether you belong to the sattvic state, a rajasic state, or a tamasic state. Now, I'll give you a brief of what these are. A tamasic person is a person who is lazy, who is ignorant, who is indolent, who is heedless in life. As a result of his ignorance, he finds himself very blissful and happy. As the saying goes, ignorance is bliss, isn't it?
Sure.
I could be having a terminal disease and I wouldn't know that I'm diseased, and I'm celebrating, I'm well, I'm throwing parties, I'm having a gala good time, but I don't realize I'm a carrier of a disease. Ignorance is bliss. Such people, they are inactive, but yet they're peaceful. Now you come to the rajasic category, the hyperactive people. Now here are the people, the majority fall into this category. These people are chasing their selfish desires. They are full of aspirations, expectations. They're driven by the greed, that obsession for proprietorship. They want power, name, recognition. They want the world. And in the process of chasing their desires, they find themselves extremely agitated, disturbed, stressed. And the current crop of the corporate world, they're all trying to advance materially, but by their own confession, they have lost their peace of mind. Why? Because they're fallen under the rajasic category. And haven't you gone back into the financial history? Whenever there has been a financial crisis, it just boils down to human greed. History has proven it time and again, but we have not realized where we're going wrong. So these people are active. So because of action, they're productive, but they are not peaceful. They're not happy. Now the Shastras have given us a very powerful example. A person who is in a rajasic state can never find himself peaceful and contented. The classic example is Ravana. Ravana had, in that famous epic Ramayana, Valmiki talks about Ravana had everything. He had a harem from the heaven, and yet he wanted Sita. That is what your mind will crave for, that which you do not have. And you can never ever satisfy that mind. Remember, your mind is like a Ravana, asking for one more. Like that play, Oliver Twist, they say Oliver asked for more, and it was a furore it created. So your mind asks for more, you keep demanding more. So Rajasic people are active and not peaceful. And Sattvic state or Sattva is a state where actions are driven by the buddhi or the intellect. You have a goal or a purpose in life. And when you do that, a goal or a purpose means you have a higher ideal to serve. You've risen beyond your own personal self-centered interests. You embrace a larger interest of a larger cause. And when one has such a purpose or a vision and envisions such a purpose, life becomes very fulfilling, very satisfying, at the same time, very rewarding. So a sattvic person who is very dynamic, who's very productive, who's very industrious. At the same time, he's very peaceful, he's very contented. This is a perfect state, and humanity doesn't know this. They are only shuttling between tamas to rajas, rajas to tamas. Nobody ever comes to that perfect state of a human, which is to have sattva. And a best example of what a sattvic state is, I'll take two examples. It's like a bullet train. If you've ever gone to Japan or one of these countries where bullet trains is a norm there, these trains are traveling at 400, 500 kilometers an hour. And you wouldn't even feel a ripple in your teacup. So that is dynamism, efficiency, at the same time, quietude, equanimity.
Stillness, yeah.
Stillness. But not at the cost of production. It's not the stillness of a tamasic person who is in heedlessness, ignorance. Stillness while you're dynamically active. And another example is an aircraft which is at a cruising altitude of 35,000 feet. It is flying at 900 kilometers an hour. You wouldn't even realize that you're in the thin air. That is technology. Now that's possible very much. The Vedas are talking about this efficiency. At the very beginning, I said, science is organized knowledge. Wisdom is organized life. So if you take to this Vedic wisdom, you will lift yourself to that sattvic state where it brings the best out of you. Now, if you ask me, sir, yeah, very well said, but how do I get to that sattvic state? There's one simple principle, which in fact is the very quintessence of Vedanta, the very essence of Vedanta. As I've said before, everyone wants to find happiness, isn't it? That's the very fundamental purpose of life. The terminus of life is happiness. Now, how do you find happiness? The very famous words of the Vedas, they say, Tyaga Shantim Anantaram. Tyaga Shantim Anantaram, which literally means peace immediately follows a spirit of renunciation. So what these Vedas are actually roaring the truth, not just talking. They're roaring this truth to us is to live a life of renunciation. But the moment I talk of renunciation, people misunderstand it. They don't want to come anywhere near renunciation because the immediate question is, what am I to renounce? No, dear. You don't have to renounce anything. What they are saying is, when you are in life, there are essentials and non-essentials, isn't it? Now, while you're working, what are the non-essentials while you're working? While you're acting, the non-essentials are your worries and anxieties, your expectations, the fruits of your action. These are all the non-essentials. They're only saying, renounce the non-essentials and enjoy the essentials. Enjoy life. Get rid of the non-essentials. And if you're able to do that, if you're able to achieve that, He's just like a sportsman. A sportsman, doesn't he renounce the result of his match and enjoy the match? I may win, I may lose, doesn't matter, but let me give my best. That's the spirit of renunciation. In fact, there is a very spirit of Gita. Karmani eva adhikara. You know the famous words, Karmani eva adhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. Everybody knows it, but hardly anybody practices it. That's the sad irony of it. Even a child who knows the Gita, he will prattle it. What is it saying? Your adhikaram, your right is only with what you have to do. Do your duty. Renounce the fruit of action. So the happiness is a state of your mind. And you can only get that through a spirit of renunciation, not a spirit of attachment. In short, renunciation is the capacity to let go. You hold on to it. You are unnecessarily carrying the mental baggage with you that doesn't give you any peace and happiness. So learn to embrace that spirit of renunciation. You know, there was a very powerful article I had seen many years ago in a newspaper. It was talking about a mother monkey. In fact, it was an article with a picture of the mother monkey holding on to its dead baby carcass. The baby had died, but the mother was holding on to the carcass so dearly because it didn't want to let go of it. First day passed, second day passed. The mites started coming, eating the baby. The mother was still holding on to it. The mites ate the baby. They're still holding on to what was left of the carcass. The mother only let go once the mites started eating the mother. That is what I call the power of attachment. So you are so attached to everything, and the law of life, as I said, Vedanta talks about laws of life which govern life. If you live a life of attachment, it causes enormous pain and agony and misery. Like when somebody scratches your car, amount of pain you have. But if somebody scratches your company car, you take it Monday morning and get it to the office and say, get the car painted. It is not yours. It doesn't bother you. But the moment you develop an attachment or a possessiveness to it, it causes enormous pain. So Vedanta is only telling us, live a life in a spirit of renunciation. So it is not renouncing things. You live a life, a spirit of renunciation. And that's what one must cultivate. But the problem is, these days, many people have a lot of knowledge, but they don't have wisdom.
True. Actually, that brings me to an interesting point. Glad you mentioned attachment and detachment. So, as per Vedas, what is detachment in practical terms?
See the word.
Can I say something? And creation as a major requirement of Vedanta, but please let us distinguish between mental renunciation and physical renunciation. That is important. Because people usually mistake it as physical renunciation you are talking about. No.
Coachmallikarao, we are not able to hear you clearly. Could you please speak a little louder, or we would love to hear your idea on this.
You are not able to hear me?
We can't hear you clearly.
I see. Okay, I will do something else. Go ahead.
We would maybe at the end of it, we would still want to hear your ideas about it. So going back to Vinayji, could you please elaborate on detachment?
See, the spirit of detachment or attachment, I think what little I could get of Coachmallikarao when he was saying, many people believe, why the spirit of detachment is misunderstood is they think detachment is a physical quality. Detachment or attachment is not a physical state. It's a mental attitude you carry to things and beings. So as I've said, if you're detached to your car, you enjoy your car. Like we are all great philosophers when the problem is somebody else's. Why? because we're very detached. It brings the best advice from us. But when the same problem comes, 1/10 of it to your own home, you can't handle it. Why? Because you're very attached to it. So detachment or attachment is nothing but an attitude of being a witness to your life. If you're able to look at things objectively, and objectively means just take a step back and look at things in life. Your attachment is getting too close to something. It's like, if I have a painting, don't I have to take a step back or two and examine and look at, enjoy the painting? I can't get this close to the painting and enjoy it. Now people have got, attachment is getting that close to it. Attachment is a wrong relationship to things and beings. Detachment is having that right distance, keeping that enough space between you and the world, and you enjoy them. You accept them for what they are. You don't expect them to fit into your mental state. You accept them for what they are. So detachment is an understanding of what they are. Detachment is keeping the distance and relating with them the right way. Our mindset. We want others to behave the way we want, don't we? Just because another person loves you, does it mean he has to agree with you all the time? If somebody disagrees with you, how do you handle that disagreement? And you can't handle it because of your attachment. Sorry, Malika, we can't hear you.
I said that's interesting. So let us take an example of, like you meant, a relationship. So a marriage, right?
Yeah.
So there are expectations, there is attachment. So how do you stay detached in a close relationship like that?
See, first and foremost, you must understand there are two different individualities. You must respect that individual personality for what he or she is. What happens is, why do people get into a relationship? Is because A finds that B is constantly satisfying A's demands, and B realizes A also seems to cater and satisfies B's demands. So each one is constantly living in the company of each other's expectations. And that's the very beginning of a relationship. I wouldn't want to be with a person who doesn't align with my thinking, who disagrees with me, who doesn't give me emotion. You wouldn't. So it all begins with you start catering to each other. And in that process, you fail to realize that there is a possibility that other person doesn't fit into my expectations, because there is nothing in life as 100% compatibility, isn't it? And since there is no 100% compatibility, you have lost the realistic aspect of life. You don't look at life realistically. Then you're driven on emotions. You lost your reasoning. You have lost your assessment. You lost your ability to relate with what that person is. You constantly want that person to be what you are, what you want. And that causes a great rift. So it all boils down to a simple assessment as to what other person is and accepting it. And by that, you give them the space in the room. And also, when other person is not able to fit into your mental bracket, you should be able to understand and forgive them. So it is all about managing and handling your emotions. See, emotion is such a beautiful thing. It actually embellishes our human personality. But that very emotion, when you don't have a control over it, when you're not able to govern or harness it, it becomes a curse. A blessing turns into a curse. So today relationships are not lasting because you're not able to handle that emotion. Just because another person doesn't cater to you, you get emotion of anger. And I know relationships snap because of a certain emotion.
True.
So it all boils down to that, Malika.
Correct. I agree with you. There is so much of codependency in relationships that's actually taking over more than celebrating each other's individuality and respecting those boundaries.
Very well said. Yes.
So, could you please take us through a process where we can apply these principles of Vedanta to resolve the issues or challenges in life and find a purpose? How do we find our purpose?
See, it all begins with an understanding as to where you are, what is life, and how complex life is. And in order to resolve all this, you need not just information, but you need wisdom.
Correct.
See, knowledge is nothing but an information which you can gather it from an external source. And today we are in an era where we are inundated with knowledge, inundated with information. And mere information is of no use. It's like they say, information is like carrying gold on a mule's back. The mule doesn't understand it is carrying golds of bar. If it has an ounce of sense, it will sell 1 bar, it will be chauffeur driven. But it will be only carrying that load of gold bars on its back, isn't it? So the era we are in is we are inundated with knowledge, information. Information helps others, but it doesn't help you. But if you want the information to help you, you must allow it to go through a certain process. And that process is exactly like the food when you eat. The system goes through the process of digesting the food you have eaten. Just assume, let's say the food you have eaten is not digested, is not accepted by your system for some reason. No soon you'll realize you're into some big trouble or some trouble. You will find uneasiness, you'll have issues, you'll have complications. But when the food is accepted by your system, digests it, it gives you life, it gives you energy, it gives you stamina. Now, precisely the same way, the knowledge which is received has to be processed, has to be understood, has to be reflected, has to be made one's own. And when this process is not done, we will have people with ideas. As there's a beautiful saying, men with ideas and no legs are no more than intellectual centipedes. We have men with ideas, but they're like a centipede. You have 100 legs, but how long does it take for a centipede to cross a living room? Perhaps a whole day. It doesn't help you live a life, does it? So it's not as much as being informed, it's as much as being transformed. So in all our teachings, the way we approach it is there is an inbuilt thinking in the very teaching itself. It's not a mechanical process, but to question every aspect of the knowledge. And when you do that, you get the essence of it. And once you get the essence, then it gets transformed into wisdom. And when you have the wisdom, you start living it. And how does this wisdom express? There's a phrase in the Shastras which say, how do you know whether you have wisdom? The phrase which says is, Atma Buddhi Prasadajam. Atma Buddhi Prasadajam means a blessings of the clarity of one's intellect. You have phenomenal clarity. Now, if you give me time, if you allow me to clarify that, I will give you an insight as to how complex life is and how we make a mess of our life by making the wrong choice because we lack this clarity. But I hope we are all on the same page till now, because it is all that life needs is wisdom, not information. And we are not allowing the information to go through a certain process, which is done, it's like a science. It's just like, I can't, just by reading medical journals, I don't become a doctor, do I? People have enough knowledge today, so they have self-acclaimed gurus, everybody has become. Just because they have so much information at their fingertips. But I would never take self-administrative medicine. Even if I have a headache for more than 3 days, I would still go to a doctor and consult him. So Vedanta is a science. And at the very beginning, I've said we have not understood the fundamental thing that living also is an art. We need to learn it and practice it and perfect it. Just because one have lived a certain number of years, one can't claim to have perfected life. And this is what the Shastras are saying.
Very true. And there's so many of us who are well informed but not necessarily well educated. So
Yeah.
only when that translates into wisdom does it actually carry some weight and make sense of its existence. So on this note, I have seen this beautiful movie called Peaceful Warrior. I'm not sure if you've seen it.
Yes, I have.
Yes, it's a true story. And then the disciple asks the master, what is wisdom? And they're in the car, and the car is getting washed. And he said, you see the wipers? That's knowledge. And when the wipers start cleaning, he says, that's wisdom. So, yeah, thank you so much for bringing that point.
Yeah.
So, how do we start? How do we get started in the art of living?
The first step is to realize that I do not know. And that's the most difficult thing one can say in an era where you are well informed. See, help can only come when you have this attitude of surrender. You know, when you think you know, no man worth the knowledge will ever come and give knowledge to you. Knowledge is always taken. Knowledge is never given. So make yourself worthy of receiving this knowledge by understanding how much you know is too little vis-a-vis what you do not know. The way the great words of Einstein, he said, when he was being felicitated in one of his speeches, he said, Einstein said this, what is my knowledge compared to my ignorance? In fact, the first sign of wisdom is humility. When you have wisdom, you become humble. When you have knowledge, you become arrogance. నేను చెప్తున్నాను కదా, I am telling you, నా మాట విను, నాందాపా சொல்றேன், that kind of an attitude, you think you know everything. So I think the very beginning of learning is to understand that I do not know. And that paves way. The moment you become a student of this knowledge, there's all the knowledge out there to help you to transform you. But as long as you don't have that mindset, no help will come. And all thanks to the very knowledge itself. So knowledge can be a blessing and knowledge can be a curse. Sadly, in this context, the knowledge itself has become a curse. And interestingly, where do you find wisdom? In the very knowledge itself. So it's a catch-22 situation. You need to have the knowledge, and yet you need to approach it in the right way so that it serves you well. But when it serves you well, you get this Atma Buddhi Prasadajam. You get the clarity of intellect, which is a blessing. Mallika.
Wonderful. Yes. I follow many masters, and I've had the good fortune and learning from so many gurus, and including you. And they all talk about being an empty cup all the time, because
Yes.
when you're full, you can never learn anything new. And thanks for bringing that point. So one is coming from a place of willingness to know and learn. What is the next step?
See, the next step is the blunder in the choices we are making. I would say we are all nothing but the choices we have made. The present is nothing but a destiny. The present destiny is nothing but a fair reflection of my past choices thus far. Now, if all what I'm seeking is happiness, what are the choices am I making? The Shastras very clearly guide us as to how complex life is. Now, I would want to give an insight into this very subtle point. If I can request you all to be very receptive, a very subtle point that life is not what we think it is. True happiness in life And this realization, sadly, it doesn't dawn on us. We don't have that wisdom. What they say is any true happiness has a very distasteful beginning. Anything that is good has a unpleasant beginning. So he says true happiness is poison to begin with, nectar in the end. False happiness is nectar in the beginning, is poison in the end. Now, how do we realize that in life? In perhaps, if not all, in most of things it applies. To get on with life, to get up in the early morning, to do your study. You know, Malika, for the past 30 years, my day begins at 4 a.m. in the morning. And if you ask me, do you enjoy that? Enjoy getting up from the bed? It is the most detestable thing. But thereafter, what you do thereafter, the early hours, is the most enjoyable thing. It's the most unpleasant thing to begin with, but it is nectar in the end. Even to put on your shoes and go for a jog or a stretch or yoga or any form of exercise, is to get over that initial lethargy is very, very painful. But thereafter, you enjoy that vibrance of energy, life, lightness. So anything that has a distasteful beginning has a beneficial end. So all good and beneficial things have an unpleasant beginning. We've got to be very mindful. Anything good and beneficial has an unpleasant beginning, and anything that is bad and detrimental have a pleasant beginning.
So we're talking about instant gratification too.
Absolutely. You fall a prey to that instant gratification. And alarmingly, all wrong things are always right in the beginning. And all the right things are always wrong in the beginning. Don't ask me why is life designed like way. That's how life is, isn't it? But if all pleasant things have a pleasant beginning, all detrimental things have an unpleasant beginning, well, you don't need Vedas, you don't need Shastras, you don't need wisdom, you don't need this interview, do we? Everybody is by nature doing the right things. So the reason we need the wisdom is because life is complex. It puts us at a point of confusion. You get lost, and we don't have the clarity to make the right choice. So firstly, you got to understand that I do not know, which reflects in the wrong choices I make. It gives us enough reason for me to put aside my understanding and said, let me surrender to a giant intellect, which is the Vedas.
The way I would like to believe is life is pretty simple, and we complicate it because we do not understand it in the first place. So it's actually like giving iPhone 11 Pro to a toddler and expecting him to figure it out. So he's going to do what he could with that. So, and I appreciate that Vedas, we are in an age of technology. And as one of my masters says, in the age of information, ignorance is bliss. So the very fact that there are today 87 people on this call on a Sunday morning proves that they all have the attitude of learning, and they believe that they do not know enough and they could learn more, and they're here. So I would like to appreciate all of you for being there and surrendering to this process. So
that's wonderful to know. I didn't know that many were there. That's nice.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
And the second point is now that we understand the importance of Vedas, and Vedas teach us the basic principles you have touched upon about Vedas, that we need to surrender, the sense of detachment, and the ability of discernment to look at the larger picture and understand what life truly is, and then going about it is very fundamental. Could you please share one or two ideas from Vedanta in order to find inner peace?
See, first and foremost, we got to understand that peace is not something which belongs to others. It is not their commodity, it's your proprietary. You own it. So first and foremost, you be a master of it. Don't be a slave. See, everybody has gone about ensuring everything in life, don't we? Yesterday, or not yesterday, last week, when I was with a doctor, and well, good acquaintance, and we are very friendly, and so once the treatment or whatever I went for was done, we just having a little chat, and I was asking how things are and things, and he got into this insurance. He said, sir, the current times are pretty bad, so what I have done is I've actually increased my coverage from this much to that much. So I've increased my coverage to 50 lakhs. Mm-hmm. So I'm paying this much premium. And then thereafter, he was constantly worried. No, I was about to tell him. And then I remembered, knowledge is never given, it's taken. He has not sought me the advice, so I didn't give it. You see, but since you're asking me, I'm narrating that experience. Now we go about insuring everything, but we have not insured our own peace of mind. Have you insured your peace of mind? You have not insured it. So everything that happens out there affects you. It could be your maid breaking your chainaware. It could be as innocuous as that, or you could be losing your job, which is as valuable to you in this scenario. So somewhere between the most invaluable to the most valuable, something out there seems to affect you. Why it affects you? Because you have lost your liberty, you've sold your liberty to it. So first and foremost, understand happiness is not something external. Happiness is internal. And once you understand that, you will develop a sense of self-sufficiency. You believe that it is within. It is within, right? As Christ said, the kingdom of heaven is within you. The question is, do you believe in it? So because of our attachment and because of our wrong relationship with things and people, we are losing our own peace and happiness. But if you are able to relate with situations well, with an intellect, manage your expectations, and give that right relationship, you will find your peace and happiness is right within you. And hell and heaven, as John Milton says, hell and heaven are not geographical places. They say it's a state of mind. And if you leave your mind to itself, it can make a hell out of heaven, a heaven out of hell. So you can have everything going your way and you can feel hell about it. You can be going through hell of a situation and you can feel heavenly about it. So you got to understand it is not situations out there, it is what I make of it. Very recently, I was having a conversation with one of my very dear students. He's based in Hong Kong. I'm sure he would be there on this chat. He said he is certainly there. I don't see him in this screen though, but I'm quoting him. And he said this, Guruji, thanks very much to your teachings. I've taken a big leap of wonderfulness in life. It's a huge leap into that wonderfulness. I'm actually experiencing that feeling of happiness and lightness. And when I say this, the current times, the year has been very challenging for business. And in spite of that, yet I feel so light. I feel so comfortable. I'm having a very peaceful sleep. So it is not the external situations, but how you relate to it, that all that matters. But if you believe it is outside, you can waste all your time and effort in it, but ultimately realize it's not there. You'll have to turn within someday.
So basically, you're looking at the wrong place. And happiness is an inside job. And once you get your inner world right, it will reflect in your outer world. Am I
Absolutely.
right, Vinayji?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, I have a small story in that context. There was a very elderly lady with a walking stick looking for something under a street light. And a passerby looks at that lady at that ripe age, struggling to search for something, and he immediately goes in assistance to search, help her. Seeing another passerby stops, and in India it happens, no? We get down and anything that interests us, we want entertainment. So, and a few more people joined in, and after 10 minutes, there were a group of 15, 20 people searching for something. And everybody were busy searching, but none were finding anything. And then they started probing each other and say, hey, what are you looking for? I said, I do not know. I just started searching because he was searching. And then the chain led to the old lady. And then they asked, Amma, I know that you are seriously searching for something. What are you searching for? To which she said, I am actually searching for my needle, That is my only thing I have. See, my clothes are tattered and torn and I need this needle desperately to stitch them. Okay. I know it will be difficult to search for it, but where did you lose it? Because there are 40 eyes searching for it and we have not found it. Where have you lost it? She said, actually, I lost it in my hut. Then they asked, bewildered, why are you searching here? No, there is no light in my hut, but there's enough light in the street. Therefore, I'm searching here. That's how absurd our life is. We are searching where there's light. In fact, this, the symbolism behind why a sanctum sanctorum in a temple is kept dark. If you go to any Orthodox temple, there's enough light rest of the temple, but the sanctum sanctorum is intentionally left dark. The only light that is there is that the lamp at the feet of the Lord. That light is just good enough to have the darshan. Why is it kept dark? The Godhood or the truth is unknown to you. And the deepest bowels of the temples has the deity, the sanctum sanctorum. The God within is unknown to you. Yet it is resplendent. It's not that the Atman or the reality is gloomy. No, the truth is resplendent. But it is unknown to you. That's the symbolism. So you need to go within to search the truth. But just because everything out there is tantalizing and it is glittery and it is tempting, we all fall a prey to the external temptations and we have got lost. But we need to garner our thoughts and turn within. And one who turns within will find that he will tap the reservoir of happiness. It's a reservoir of happiness there. But as long as you turn outward, you will be fooled by your own senses.
Yeah, beautifully put. So with this, Vinayji, let us open the questions from the audience. I have one already from
Sure.
Ratna. Okay. Ratna says, Vinay Garu, knowing that Vedas and Upanishads teach us the way of life, the only way of life, why is it not easily and readily available to today's society at schools and colleges? Why it has to come to us later in life once we realize and lost so many years of life without peace or purpose?
In fact, I must say Ratnama has actually read my mind. In fact, the often remark I get, not just from her, I appreciate her observation, but all my students who have come to me, and as I've said, in the little journey I've taken, I started lecturing or sharing I was given an opportunity to go and start teaching, and I just took to it like fish to water. I did not know, we were not trained. I just wanted to share my experience. So when I went into it from the age of 19, I started sharing. So it's over 2 decades. I've just dealing with lives of people, the minds of people, is trying to share these ideas. And the common comment from every student almost I get, where has this knowledge been all this while? And they say, I wish I had this knowledge a little earlier. I just wish if only I had, So it is very easy to say that why is this knowledge, where has this knowledge been? As I always said in life, Ratnama, please realize everything in life works with this principle of demand and supply. As long as there is demand, there shall be supply. The fact that Mallika ji was very kind enough to invite me, there is this demand was created, there is supply. And so nice to hear all of you are available to be receptive to these ideas. The question is, are you really ready enough to lend your ears to these great truths? Do you have that space for it in your life? Have you created that space? So the moment you create that space, knowledge comes, it flows. Knowledge always flows from higher to lower. So it shall flow, but it is in us to create that space. And having said that, it has been our effort to make this knowledge available in every possible avenue, whether be it pure philosophy. Like I said, I do take lectures on the purest aspect of Vedanta, which is teaching the scriptures and the Shastras, whether be it the Gita or the Prakriyas or the very Upanishads themselves. I do even the seminars and workshops for the corporates. I go to the education institutions to teach them these practical tools so that they have it ingrained, because I know what it means to have it at that young age. I got it at 16. And these knowledge, this value should be taught before you enter the arena of life. You can't learn it after entering. And that's where everybody realizes it's a little too late. It's like, I don't learn driving on the highway. I must learn driving, perfect it, and then get onto the highway. But everybody seems to be aping other, blind leading the blind. The reason why where we are is nobody is questioning, nobody is examining life and seeing what is happening. You know, there's a very beautiful saying, a wise man is one who learns from others' mistakes.
True.
Why are we not learning?
And history is full of it. Mythology talks all about that, how to
Absolutely.
learn from these great people and stories. And also to Ratna's question, when the student is ready, this is what scripture says, when the student is ready, the master appears. So yeah, and like Vinayji mentioned earlier, that what is more important is that willingness to learn. The acknowledgement that I do not know, I would like to know, and that surrender to learn. And once that happens, the avenues open. And Vinayji does take workshops. I'm going to share his details very shortly. Please subscribe to his workshops and his classes. He teaches Gita, Vedanta, and many other seminars. You could also become part of Circle of Mindfulness, where we bring more and more teachers like Vinayji and everybody together on one platform and introduce them to you. So you can see what is that you can learn. And like I said, we are living in a very, very interesting times where things have become so much more easy. It is so accessible. I feel back in olden days or ancient times, to meet one guru, you had to wait your entire lifetime to have that one initiation and that one piece of advice or probably truth. Right now, we have access to so many of them, and there is so many oceans out there to quench our thirst of knowledge and wisdom. So the next question, a lot of people agree with it, Vinayji. What you said is right.
Thank you.
That there is a dearth of this information out there. But I'm going to share Vinayji's information so you all can get in touch with him. There is another question. As mentioned, technique of living, Vedas is not taught in schools or colleges, and good articulate, and gurus who can articulate are hard to come by, but looks plentiful. In this context, is it possible to understand only by reading these books?
Could you get what exactly that question is asking?
The question is, can you learn the wisdom through reading the books alone?
Okay. Who is asking that, Mallika?
This is, the name is not completely given.
Okay, fair enough. Now, see, you need to be extraordinary caliber to just read books and be able to help yourself. Just to draw an analogy in the Shastras, is like you need to be an Ekalavya. You need to learn archery from a statue of a guru. See, Ekalavya was an extraordinary student. His guru did not want to teach for obvious reasons. I wouldn't get into it. But when Dronacharya said, I will not teach archery, he went into the woods, made a statue of him and learned from the statue. Statue means is a dead guru. A book is a dead guru. Means it doesn't talk to you. You need to have all that in you to be able to help yourself. It needs extraordinary intellect, but if you have a guide to help you, will always help. Now, why I say this is the scriptures are spoken in their contemporary thought and language. And you need someone who needs to understand that and put in our contemporary thought and language. Make it applied philosophy. They only talk pure philosophy. So I would say it is rather difficult to understand. So you would need to find someone who can help you understand and make it simpler to guide you, to help you. Without which it would be rather difficult to fathom what they are saying.
Great. The next question is, actually a lot of people are asking, Guruji, do you teach children and teenagers?
Yes, I do teach them.
Great. And another question is, Guruji, what is true service as per Vedanta? This is asked by Seturaman, Mr. Seturaman.
He was a student of mine, and I don't know why he's asking, because other day we spent 1.5 hours understanding this. So Mallika, you'll have to stretch by 1.5 hours.
I think
now, yeah, Mallika.
I suspect he wants everybody to understand it.
No, I know. See, he always has a larger intention behind it. So I get where he's coming from. The question is, what is true service? There are various elements or ingredients of service. Fundamental element of understanding service actually can be rendered at various levels of one's personality. So one must understand you can do material service, you can do physical service, you can do emotional and intellectual service, and then you can also do spiritual service, which is the verse in the 4th chapter of the Gita, which says Dravya yajñās tapo yajñāh yoga yajñās tathapare swadhyaya jnana yajñāscha yataya samshita vrataha. So of all sacrifices, the sacrifice of the knowledge of the self is perhaps, he says, is the highest of all yajñas you can ever render to mankind. Now, but the fundamental principle of service is service must benefit the recipient. It's not what you have that you can part with, whether it does benefit the recipient. And when that service is done in the right spirit, it transforms the donor and the donee. It benefits the donee and the donor. So the true service you do render is always judged by what result it produces. What is the outcome of your service? So, and there are greater elements to it. Many people think service as getting rid of unwanted things in the house. You get rid of junk or garbage from the house. I don't need this. It's not parting with unwanted things. Service is to identify with the donee. And there are more elements to it, but of all services, Atma Vidya is the highest of all services, the Gita says. Hardly known, hardly understood, rarely done.
Great. Wonderful. There is another question from Mr. Rangarao. When everything is predestined, what is that effort I am to put to get to that destiny or to that goal?
Rangara Garu, the question you're asking is, if everything is predestined, what is the consequence of putting any effort, or is there any role of self-effort? Perhaps I would like to question the very assumption or the proposition you put, firstly, that everything is predestined. The Shastras say nothing in life is predestined. Your destiny is this moment, sir. Destiny is the present moment. My destiny in the present is determined or predetermined by my actions I've committed thus far. I know what I have done this moment backwards. You do not know. I know. Since I know what I have done, I will helplessly face the consequences of actions I have committed. But I have not done any actions from now on. My future is up to me what I do. So the future is open book. That is not predestined. If you say future also is predestined or predetermined, then human has no free will. That free will is known as in Sanskrit Purushartha. And in fact, it's only a human being has got what is this Purushartha. No other creature. In fact, you are right to say animals' lives are predestined, not a human life. A carnivore will die as a carnivore. It will never become a herbivore. And a herbivore will never become a carnivore just because it is short of vegetation. It will die as a herbivore. So their lives are restricted, not a life of a human. So the Shastras say you can evolve to the highest glory, or you can devolve to the lowest. The choice is yours. So a human being has got what is known as the choice of action. And if you say if it is predestined, it takes away that freedom or free will or choice of action from us, which the Shastras don't agree to that. So you may have to revisit the idea and perhaps examine it. And if opportunity arises, you can always connect with me again and we can have an open discussion on it, sir.
That's wonderful. We have another question. Yes, you have. It is generally understood that Gita borrows heavily from the Upanishads. Is it then better to read the Upanishads since they are the source?
See, Upanishads are like PhD. Gita is like I would say, let's say, schooling. You would have to evolve from schooling to graduate and then do PhD. So I wouldn't recommend to read the Upanishads directly. No doubt, as you rightly said, Gita is nothing but, if you know, I'm sure you're well acquainted, the entire Gita, which consists of 701 verse, 18 chapters. You know, the 18 chapters of Gita is explaining only 3 words. The 3 words which the Upanishads take 18 chapters of chaste philosophy is explaining the 3 words. The 3 words are Tat, Tvam, Asi. That thou art. Now, I can't guarantee you will understand or I have been struggling to understand that. So it takes a lot of effort to understand what the Upanishads are declaring. So the Upanishads give aphorisms. So this is one of the very famous aphorisms, which it takes 18 chapters to explain. So you need this understanding to get to the deeper works. We all will evolve, but I think it's better to start with Gita, or in fact start with more preliminary textbooks, other prakriyas, like I would recommend Bhajagovindam, Atma Bodha. They are more simpler, diluted philosophy of the same text, and then slowly you could evolve to Gita and then move on to the Upanishads or the Vedas.
And there's another question by Amrita. If we are by our free will, then why people die suddenly in natural calamities? Isn't it predestined?
No, cause of death is not. It's just an instrument. You can die through disease. You can die through COVID. You can survive through COVID. You can be alive through a flight crash, or you can die through a natural calamity, or you can die naturally. Your death is only determined by your vasanas. So death is too subtle to be determined by gross factors. Death is only determined by when your vasanas are the thought forces which are responsible for the creation of a being. So when a human being is born, he is born with certain vasanas. Vasanas can be understood as desires. So the desires are the fuel, or the vasanas are the fuel which drives a human. And when those vasanas or desires get exhausted, one dies. And how you die is determined by your karma. I can die a very peaceful death. I can die a miserable death. And how you die is decided by your karma. But my appeal to us is, but to you all is, let us all die once. Let us not die day by day. Every moment to moment, we are afraid of dying. Thanks to the virus, there is a fear that has consumed and engulfs us. Let us all, Amrita, let's all die once. And it can be through the virus, let it be. So let us live peacefully, happily, rather than dying moment to moment, isn't it? It's like the doctor was worried. He's worried. Every patient walks into the clinic. Is he a carrier of virus? He's getting paranoid. And I told him, why don't you close the clinic and sit in the house? How long will I fund the clinic? How long will I keep taking out my savings? So you can't accept this, you can't accept that, and he's dying moment to moment. So my appeal to him is, sir, let's all die once, sir. And we had a good laugh at it. Yeah?
Very true. And very well.
It?
We have another question by Miss Agasti. Hi, good morning. I'm new too, and this is the first session. Question from me is, Vinayji mentioned about 3 categories each one of us fall in, like one Satra. Okay,
Sattva, Rajas, Tamas.
Yes, he mentioned something else. So I couldn't remember the words though. How do we control ourselves and drive towards desired one? And thank you, Vinayji, for great sessions with simple words. He says, or she says.
Thank you. Her good name, sorry, Agastya, is it?
Agasti. So I do not know whether this.
Agasti. No, Agasti. I think I see her name here.
Yeah.
Thanks, Agasti, for the compliment. See, I've always learned that it is the job of a learned man or a man of knowledge to be understood. You don't expect the students to rise to his level. It's important for me to decode it and put it in a language you understand. And that has been my effort. It is very easy for me to come onto this platform and just rattle off some Vedic truths. No, I can just say what the Vedas are saying. I can just start chanting. No, Isha Vasya Midagu Sarvam Yatkincha Jagatyam Jagat. Thank you, Mallika. I'm done. Will that help? Tena tyaktena bhunjida magradha kasyas vidhanam. This is the highest truth of Vedanta, of the Upanishads, of Ishavasya Upanishad. Tadeva brahmatvam vidhi nedam yadidam upasate. And I can rattle off the Vedas, I can rattle off the Upanishads. Believe me, you may be mesmerized by it, but you will not understand the word. As Umar Khayyam said, they talked about and about. I came out of the same door I went in. They just spoke many words, but I didn't understand anything. But when somebody speaks in a language you understand, often I get comments is, what did he speak? I also know everything. So I'm glad you have taken that approach. You appreciate that how the Vedic principles are able to be relatable. So the question you're asking is, what are these three states of sattva, rajas, tamas, and how do we rise to it? So sattva, rajas, tamas are nothing but your mental temperaments, and these mental temperaments reflects in everything that you do. The kind of food you eat, the kind of thoughts you entertain, the kind of clothes you wear, everything that you do is determined by the mindset. Now, sattva is the highest state of a mind, which is calm, peace, serene, equanimous, balanced, equipoised. Rajas is a state of mind which is agitated, disturbed, desire-ridden, stressful, full of expectations, disappointed, anxiety, etc. Tamas is a state of heedlessness. Anything you say, their standard definition is dekhenge, akla, choose them. Everything is future tense. So they have this attitude of postponing. They never do it then and then. So it is ignorance, it is sleep, it is sloth. Now, the question is, how do you promote it? So when you understand the three natures, and when you gain this higher wisdom, the higher wisdom is food for thought for your sattva. So when you gain this wisdom, your sattvic quotient slowly but surely increases. So if you have the right stimuli, if you have the right input, you will grow. In fact, I will remind you of the very famous words by quoting Adi Shankaracharya's very famous verse from Bhaj Govindam. He says, Sat Sangatve Nisangatvam Nisangatve Nirmohatvam Nirmohatve Nishchalatatvam Nishchalatatve Jivan Muktihi. Now, why I refer to this verse is, here is a verse which gives us the ladder of rise of a human being. There are two ladders in the Shastras, the ladder of rise in Bhaj Govindam and ladder of fall in the chapter 2 of the Gita, verses 62 and 63. Chapter 2, 62 and 63 gives the ladder of fall, the ladder of rise in Bhaj Govindam, 9th verse. Now, please go and refer to it. Now, why I refer to the ladder is, he says, your spiritual rise starts with satsangatve. He says, satsang is the company you keep, the right company. So what is the right stimuli you give to yourself? That determines what you become. It's like, it's the raw material. What is the kind of raw material that is being supplied into the company? If the company supplies very poor quality of cotton, the fabric that comes out will also be mediocre, isn't it? But if the cotton is of the best quality, you will find the machinery is also beautiful, the process is beautiful, the product also is of the finest quality. So your spiritual evolution begins with satsang. So if you give yourself the right stimuli, the right input, the right information, the right knowledge, you will find you will be in the right direction, well and truly towards enhancing of sattva.
Thank you for answering that. There is one last question. Actually, there are lots of questions, but because we have the time limit, I will not be able to read out all of them. There is one question by Nishtala.
Sorry, Mallika. Sorry to interrupt. Are there more than one question there?
More than one questions, but we're not going to read all of them because I understand there is time commitment here. So there's one question from Nishchala. Is there a concise way of approaching the Vedanta? As this seems to be really long drawn process and I now do not have that much of time. While Guruji answers, I'm going to share with you all the details about him and his classes. So Vinayji, please could you elaborate on that while I share?
So you're asking for a pill. I'm sorry, I don't have a pill which you can just pop in and say I'm done. So the pill is what Mallika is sharing. There's no other way but to apply yourself to learn it. It's like you go to a teacher of music and say, I'm interested in piano or guitar, and I want to learn piano in 1 week. For what? I want to perform at the Albert Hall next weekend. I want to perform Albert Hall, and can you teach me piano in 1 week? What will the guru say? I don't want to say that. Yeah? So I understand your concern, but also please understand it is your life and it matters. It's all in your hands. The choice is yours. There is enough wisdom out there to transform you. It's up to you whether you want to embrace it and come and transform you, or leave it aside and live the life one wants to. The choice is yours, ma. But there's enough out there to help you. So please help yourself. All right?
Yeah, and I agree, there are no shortcuts when you really want to seek wisdom and not just settle for knowledge. Here are the details of Vinayji and his wisdom classes. Bhagavad Gita every Sunday from 11:30 to 12:45, and Bhaja Govindam every Wednesday 6 p.m. to 7:15. For more details, you have the information here. You can write to him. You can also look him up on his website, which is wisdomfoundation.co.in, isn't it?
Yes, Mallika.
Yeah.
So these classes are all online for now. So you are, if you're interested, and if it has aroused a spark of inquiry into you, please drop a note. These are already established classes which are being run on an online platform. You can be a part of it. You'll have more than enough opportunity to have a dialogue and learn in a very dynamic manner. So I hope you all have got the details and look forward to seeing you there.
Thank you so much for joining today and enlightening us and giving us more insights into Vedanta. And through this effort, I hope and pray that more and more people come into this way and learn from the ancient wisdom, which has always been there. I mean, all the answers are there. It is just a matter of seeking them and willing to accept and learn. So please do join Vinayji's classes, and I hope you will find your answers and live a happier and prosperous life. And thank you, Vinayji.
Thank you, Mallika. Thank you very much.
And to all the audience, thank you so much for taking your time and joining this session. Please continue on your spiritual path of seeking, and the right teachers will walk in and do the needful. So I wish you all a blessed evening. And I hope you all have noted down Vinayji's contact. And also
Hari Om. Hari Om.
Thank you, Guruji. Thank
you.
Thank you, Guruji.
Thank you.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
WhatsApp group here. I'm saying if anyone would like to join. Thank you.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om. Thank you.
Thank you, Vinayji.
Nice to see you in Zoom.
Hari Om.
Yes, Hari Om.
Thank you, Guruji. Pranam.
Hari Om, Guruji.
Thank you. Namaskaram. Namaskaram.
great. Vinayji, I know you have to rush to the next session too. So thanks once again. We'll talk very soon.
Thank you. Thank you, Mallika. Lovely. Thank you. Hari Om. Good day. Thank you. Namaskar.
Thank you, Vinayji.
Thank you. Thank you.